Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
It's lovely to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming down.
Oh my God, it's our pleasure.
Wait, are we in Canada or are we in New York?
We're in New York.
Okay, we are in New York.
We're telling the truth.
I didn't know if we were faking.
We're not faking it at all.
Okay.
So nice to be here.
Oh, like, it's so nice in Canada.
So
this
nice to
time
be
of
here
year.
among the maple
Yeah.
trees. It's so
Yeah.
gorgeous. And
Yeah,
free,
Michael Bublé.
free
Huh?
healthcare. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I really love it.
Yeah.
I really loved listening to your record, Harry.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed every moment of it. I listened
Thanks.
to it. I listened to it when it came out, and then I put it on twice yesterday when I knew I was coming down. And I really feel like I heard a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
I heard like a deep sense of longing in some of those songs, and I also heard sheer joy. And they weren't exclusive from one another. Like in the moments of longing, I still heard joy because it felt like I heard you doing what you wanted to do.
Right.
Am I onto something?
I think so. I mean, that's kind of what I hear when I listen to it, and I think that's what I have loved about the record so much is that I think some of my most positive moments have been listening to some of the sadder songs, and I think there's moments where you get to some of the like most emotional moments on the album, and to me they feel quite uplifting, especially stuff like Fine Line, pretty sad song. And then I wanted that end to kind of be very it just feels quite optimistic to me, I think, and it feels quite like positive, and it kind of felt like the perfect way to finish the record. So, yeah, I'm pleased you kind of got that from it, I guess. But I think when you write sad songs, you can gain a lot from them. I don't think, sometimes it's just as simple as them being a good outlet to kind of get something out. And it's nice sometimes to kind of wrap a feeling up in like a little 3.5 minute package. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of wallow in it. It can be like, okay. And then you gain something from it. You get a song from it, and you can turn an experience that isn't necessarily that positive into a positive one, and you can learn from it. And I think that's kind of what's exciting about music,
Just simply processing
Yeah.
hard things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's almost therapeutic in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's difficult to be as honest with any person as you can be like with an instrument.
Yeah.
If you're just, sitting and writing with a guitar or a piano or something, and sometimes even if it doesn't end up being the song, just saying something out loud can be nice to kind of get that out. So yeah, I definitely find writing like incredibly therapeutic. Yeah.
It reminds me. Sometimes I go to therapy, and I feel like all I did was talk,
Right.
and I didn't hear anything back.
Right.
And I realized that
Is the point of
that in
therapy.
itself is
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing.
Right,
It really
yeah.
is. Did it feel different than making the first one, the first solo one?
Yeah, it felt very different.
Like less pressure?
It
or-
felt, I'd say, yeah, I think less pressure, but more just that I put less pressure on myself, I think. I felt like, first of all, it was much longer, and it was a lot more frustrating, and I'd say it was probably more difficult overall.
the first one.
The second one.
Oh, go away.
In terms of the actual like finishing it and everything. But I think at each moment when you get to those things where, you're making something that you really care about, sometimes it's nice because as soon as you come out the other side of the difficult section, the frustrating section, you're like, it's not supposed to be easy. And it'd scare me a bit if I kind of made an album and was like, oh, this is really easy. And, I'm so happy with everything all of the time. And there's no questions to be asked about anything.
I wouldn't trust it.
Right, exactly. So I'd say the main difference was, I think when I listen back to the first album now and when I think back to making it I think I worried a lot just about getting it wrong. I think when I listen to it, I can hear places where I was trying really hard not to get it wrong, and it feels a little like playing it safe a little bit.
What does getting it wrong mean?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I put very much on myself, because, you know, there's not really a right and a wrong in music, and that's what's exciting about it. But it's also really scary, because sometimes you don't have that, like, well, is this right? Is this wrong? It doesn't really exist.
It's not like
So
science,
kind of,
right? Where it's,
yeah,
you know, you get, there's an answer, there's math,
you're
there's an
kind
answer
of
to the question.
floating.
Yeah.
But I think when I listen to it, and I loved the first album, but I think when I listen to it, it kind of feels like I was almost like bowling with the sides up a little bit. And I feel like when it came to making this album, I took those bumpers down, and it just felt so much more free and joyous. And I just like had a better time, and I was happier experimenting, and it felt more about like what feels good and what makes me excited to make stuff. And there wasn't really any point until, like, I've never made a record and been like, okay, what are the singles and what are the songs that people are going to hear and what are we going to put out first? And we kind of finish the album, and then you go, okay, what comes first, and how do you kind of display this album in the best way, I guess, rather than, okay, we've got like the single that's going to be played and we'll do a video for this one, and now we like fill in the gaps and hope that everybody likes it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really nice for me, and I'm lucky, you know, that I work with people who allow me to do that. But it kind of, it just makes the process like so much more exciting to me. But it also means that like every song counts. There's no, you know, it's just about the whole thing.
You can't put one out and go, okay, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And then whatever about everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, one thing that was on my mind when I was listening to the record regarding all this, and of course your past and your histories, it was on my mind while I was listening to it. And I was reading about you on, you know, when I was getting ready to talk to you, and I read the Rolling Stone article about you, which was lovely. And one of the things it said was it quoted this David Bowie thing, you know, never play to the gallery.
Oh, yeah.
I tracked down the clip and I watched it last night. And
It's good, right?
yeah, and it's something he says later that really actually stuck with me, and I wrote it down here. He said, I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. How have you found?
I think it's so true. I think you're just, I mean, I wish I could just say that the whole clip quote and pretend it was my own. I think it's so perfect.
You
but
can. I think you'd get away with it.
It's, I just think like if you're, first of all, if you're going to make something that you don't, like, if you're just trying to please people, then I think the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't go well and you just regret the fact that you didn't make what you wanted to make.
I suppose so, yeah.
The best thing that can happen is it goes really well and part of you probably still regrets not making what you wanted to make. And I think there was a little bit at the start of this album where, because the first album wasn't necessarily a radio record, it was part of me where I felt like a little bit of pressure. I wanted to make like a big album, and I wanted it to be, you know, successful, and I wanted it to work. And I think I was trying to do that for, you know, a couple weeks, and I just wasn't really happy with any of the music I was making. It was like getting close sometimes, but it just felt like I was trying to force it, and it kind of felt like, oh yeah, this song, you know, there was a couple songs. There was one in particular that was like a big turning point to me, because we wrote this song and everyone was really excited about it, and it was like, this feels like a really big song. And then I came to play it to someone and I was like cringing about playing it to someone. And I was like, that's not how you're supposed to feel
Never
when
a good sign,
you play your music to people. No. And then my friend Tyler, who I work with, just said, you know, we were talking about these albums that I wanted to make in the future and what they would sound like. And he just said, you just have to make the album that you want to make right now.
Right now,
and
yeah,
that was a big turning point.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up making the album that I wanted to make when it just wasn't about trying to make what people like. And I think, you can make a bad song and you can make a bad album and you can make stuff that people don't like, but they'll still believe in you as long as it's authentic. And I think the moment that people go, do you know what, I'm kind of done with this, I don't want to support this anymore, is when you're faking it. And you can't really blame people for that. Like if there was an artist I loved and I went to a show, I felt like the music they were making wasn't what they wanted to make. It wasn't them and they didn't really like it that much themselves.
You can tell.
I'd probably stop going.
Yeah, you can tell. You can
I
tell
think
pretty
that's
quickly.
fair.
You can tell
Yeah.
somewhere else.
So I just look at, I can only speak from personal experience, and I can look at songs and be like, I've always made my worst music when I'm trying the hardest, you know, and when it like feels a little bit too easy and feels a bit safe, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is what people want, and I write it and I just don't like it. I just usually don't like it, if you know. And it's not about, you know, I don't mean to be like, oh, I want to make stuff that like is so confusing, and you know, it's just I just only really know. I think a lot of the time when people are making music or they work in music, they think that everyone who works in music kind of operates on this like higher level of listening to fans. And, you know, sometimes people say like, oh, I don't know if people are going to get it, and I don't know if people will understand it. And I think ultimately like everyone who works in music are just fans. Like I'm just a fan of music who gets to make some. So I try and make it from that perspective. I try and write music as a fan of music, and that's kind of, I just don't really know how else to do it, I guess.
I think they're gonna take me out with a laser if I don't stop soon. But I have one more, if that's all
We
right.
can do a couple, yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Grand. It was back to that Bowie quote. You know, one of the other things that he said was, always remember that the reason you started making music was to understand more of yourself. What have you understood more of yourself through music?
I'd say this album is will be a time of my life that I will look back on as like quite a pivotal moment for me personally. I think probably forever. I think like I just went through like a big moment of self-reflection that I partly maybe didn't have time to do properly before, and kind of accepting a lot of things.
Well, it was busy, right? Because you were in the band,
Yeah.
and then you're out of the band, and then
Yeah, it was just like a lot of
yeah.
stuff kind of after each other.
Fuck, yeah.
And I think with this one, after touring with the first album, I just felt very like accepted by the crowd. And, you know, I think when you're doing shows and stuff as part of the band, people have come, even with the shows, like people have come to see a band, and it never really feels like they're there for you, because they're not. They're there to see a band. So I think when I went out and started doing shows on my own, I was kind of just amazed that people were coming to see me, and that felt like, oh, I just need to do what I want to do, and they want to see me be myself, and
They're there for you. They must do something. They must do something to you.
Yeah, and it's like it's a really amazing connection. It's like a special thing that you share with the people who come every night, because it's you know, it's kind of one of those things, like when you actually think about what coming to a show means, and you think about what it means when I go to a show, like you get the ticket and you go and you have to park, or you have to take the train, and then you have to go, and then you have to get home, and
Babysitter.
yeah, it's like, it's a lot of things. Like it means a lot for people to kind of take a night out to go to a show, and that's like amazing, and it's the biggest compliment I think someone can pay you is going to a show that you're playing. And you know, it's because you think about everyone in the room, and not everybody stood at the front, not everybody has like the most amazing view. There's some people who are at the back, and they still come, and I think that's like a really beautiful thing. And then yeah, I guess just like the the process of making that album has been so joyous for me and felt very free. And I'm lucky to work with people who kind of create that environment for me to be able to be honest and vulnerable and experiment and get things wrong. And yeah, I just feel like I learned a lot. I think this time, the times when I was happiest, it was like some of the happiest times of my life, and the times when I was sadder was some of the lowest times of my life. And I think that's kind of what the album's all about, is that kind of fragility of emotion and how fast it can change. And you know, that's why we kind of ended up calling the album Fine Line. Is that was just like a theme through the whole album process. So yeah, I'm really proud of it, and
You should be. Yeah, it's lovely, and
Thanks.
I know we have to go. I feel like you've always been able to insert, and I mean this, artfulness into spaces that don't always welcome it, and I'm appreciative.
Thank you so
of your
much.
work on that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Lovely to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.